Hi there, welcome to the last video here for Chapter 5. It's topic 5.3, how do communities and ecosystems respond to changing environmental conditions? A couple of things to remember. Communities, they're not static. They're constantly changing. Species of plants and animals are continually coming and going, evolving, dying out. Some of the changes that take place in a geographic area, they can be predictable ones, and that can be described as ecological succession. So, if ecological succession starts in a virtually lifeless area, uh, such as, let's say, the area below a retreating glacier, it's called primary succession. So in this case, in this picture, we've got primary ecological succession. So here we're looking at over almost 1,000 years. These plant communities developed, starting on bare rock, which was exposed by a retreating glacier on Isle Royale, Michigan, in northern Lake Superior. The details of this process could vary from one site to the other, but what you've got is you've got exposed rocks leading to small plants, eventually growing into much larger trees and forested areas. Now, secondary ecological succession, it takes place where an existing community has been cleared by events like fire, tornado, human impact, but the soil has been left intact. So the organisms in the first stages of either type, so here we're dealing with annual weeds, the slide before we had lichens and mosses. Those are pioneer species, and they really usually have a very wide range of environmental tolerance. The communities in every single stage of succession drive the environmental changes that will allow the next stage to take over. The final stage of succession, in which there's a dynamic balance between the living and non-living components, or biotic and abiotic components of the community, is referred to as the climax community. And climax community is dominated by a few long-lived plant species, and it is in balance with its environment. But unfortunately, there's really no predictability to all of this. The predictability, it really doesn't follow any kind of path like what we just saw in those two previous slides. Those two previous slides are really generalized pictures of succession. Now, there is this balance of nature view, which basically scientists or ecologists talk about an equilibrium being formed into a climax community. So basically, what you're seeing is, let's say you have a large terrestrial community that's undergoing succession, and it eventually became covered with a certain type of climax vegetation, like a mature forest. Okay, there's a general tendency for succession to lead to more complex, more diverse, and more stable ecosystems. But basically, what you're going to see is it's like this ever changing mosaic of organisms and patches of vegetation among the different stages, which is what we saw in those past couple of slides. But the current view with ecologists and scientists is there really is no predictability to this. You cannot predict a given course of succession or really view it as an inevitable progress or like a concept map. One thing leads to the next, which leads to the next. Succession really is going to reflect the ongoing struggle by different species to get enough light, to get enough water, to get enough nutrients, food, space, etc. So right now, most ecologists are now recognizing the fact that mature, late succession ecosystems are really not in a state of equilibrium. They're really in a state of continuous disturbance and change. So, how exactly do living systems achieve some degree of sustainability? Okay, well, stability is basically the capacity to withstand external stress and disturbance. It's really maintained only by constant change that responds to changing environmental conditions. So, if you take a look down in the lower right hand corner, you see a mature tropical rainforest. Some trees die and others take their place. Unless the forest is cut or burned or destroyed, you'd still be able to recognize it as a tropical rainforest 50, 100, 150 years from now. But two aspects of stability that you really need to know about are inertia, which is also known as persistence, and resilience. Inertia is where a living system like a grassland or a forest can survive moderate, small disturbances. The second is resilience, and that's the ability of a system to be able to be restored through secondary succession after a more severe disturbance like clear cutting or mass wildfires, things like that. Ecosystems will usually have one of these properties but not the other. Tropical rainforest, they have really, really high species richness, and they have high inertia, so they're resistant to significant change or damage. But think about it, once a large area of tropical rainforest is clear cut, severely damaged by fire, the resilience of that degraded forest could be so low that you reach a tipping point and a forest isn't going to be able to grow back there. Um, but grasslands, basically, they're much less diverse than most forests, and they have low inertia and they can burn very easily. However, because most of the plant matter is stored in roots underneath the ground, they can recover quickly, so they have high resilience. So the grassland that you see up on top there, it doesn't really have the ability to survive moderate disturbances, but it does have high resilience. If something catastrophic were to take place, it can come back. Whereas the tropical rainforest in the lower right, you see that it's got high inertia because little moderate things, trees dying off, one little patch, it's able to kind of regrow itself and able to survive. But a large disturbance like a clear cut or a massive fire that wipes out a large area of that tropical rainforest, it's not going to be able to come back and be able to say, oh, yeah, that's my tropical rainforest again. So that's all I've got for 5-3. So go ahead and take that quiz, and you guys should be ready to roll for Wednesday's class. We're going to do a case study. We're actually going to do a little bit of research on mutualism and symbiosis, and really is your textbook and other textbooks really leading you in the right direction when talking about mutualism and symbiosis. And then we'll have a free response that we'll do on Friday, as well as a relatively short multiple choice assessment on Friday. I hope you're doing well with this, and I will see you soon.